Okay, so if I just talk through the first two in terms of its translation, maybe we've not familiar with all the words, but we hopefully have ended up finding out that we have a verb. Our subject is not named specifically, but this is a first person plural, and it's the verb blepo, which means to see. So in terms of our translation, we've got we are seeing or we see. Okay. And then we have a noun here. Right, I'll highlight it with its article too. And that's from Sermion, which is sign, and it's in the plural. So the plural for the neuter is this alpha ending, and therefore we have the signs. So hopefully you picked up it was a plural, and you've translated it as the signs. And then we have our preposition, which is meta. And what we're going to do before we translate meta is we're going to look at the nouns that follow it, and we're going to look at the ending of those, and we're going to find out what case they're in. So these are in the genitive case, and because it's in the genitive case, therefore meta means with. So we all translate this as with, and then to Petru, which is Peter, we would say that we see the signs, or we are seeing the signs with Peter. We look at the second one, so we've got very similar things. So blepomen, which is the same thing we see, and the signs exactly the same, but different preposition. So we have hupo, again, it's in the genitive. So we look at what hupo means when it's in the genitive, and we see, or we are seeing the signs, and hupo with the genitive is by. Okay, we are seeing the signs, and we could just put by Paul, or we could put done by Paul, just to make sure we understand what is going on. So we see the signs done by Paul, we see the signs by Paul. Okay, and that's what that means. I'll leave you to try out some of the other ones. There are 10 questions there, and we can get the answers up for those at some point. If you want them beforehand, before next session, then that's okay. Just ask for them if you want to check what you're doing. But I'll put them up for next session. I'll put them up in here so you can have a read, have a check, and that'll be a good way of checking if you kind of picked up translation of these prepositions. Okay, just to finish then, which is just to have a look at a couple of prepositions that happen with cases. And what we've got here is two prepositions. We've got para and epi, and both of these can occur with three cases. So they can have the accusative, the genitive, or the dative, depending on what they mean. Okay, now there is a little bit of similarity in the case of these. So para means really besides, or alongside, sort of from beside, that sort of idea. And there's a sort of subtle distinction between when you use the accusative, the genitive, and the dative, and which we won't go into in too much detail just at the moment, but just to sort of give the basic idea. So the accusative quite often has this idea of motion towards something. So when we have the prepositions that we had, pros and ice, we talk about going towards something. So this is paraton oikon here, which means we're talking about something going towards something. So motion, or motion beside, actually, because the preposition means to be beside. So here we would say that para plus the accusative is beside the house. Okay, and if we have para plus the genitive, then it's really from beside. Okay, we would probably just put from God or something like that. So if you'll see that if you read of which person is it in the New Testament where it's from God, you'll have para plus the genitive. So it's not good English in that sense like that. So we would drop the beside part of it, but we could use para for it. So and from, of course, you can as in away from using apo or out from. And then you've got sort of from beside God. Okay, so all these prepositions have sort of subtle differences, but kind of overlaps in their meaning. And then you have para plus the genitive, and there isn't always a massive distinction between this one. This is like the idea of the dative really has to do with location. So it's like we can just say beside again, beside the sun. So it's probably in some sense a context that will give you the subtlety of meaning. But you'll see quite often we're talking about beside is the idea behind para. Okay, just be aware that it could come out in any one of those three cases. All right. Epi is the idea of being on something, onto, or on or in. Okay. So if we've got it in, I've done different way around here. Sorry, I've done the genitive one first, but that's fine. We'll manage, right? So epi plus the genitive, we've got epi plus the accusative, and epi plus the dative. Oh no, I've got a genitive again. I didn't do a dative. Do apologize. We'll have to change that. So right, so the dative for Jesus is the same actually. Right, so we have onto, so this is where's our accusative? I don't think I changed these words. I think I was supposed to. This doesn't necessarily correlate. On the day, onto the day doesn't quite make sense really. So we don't really want that. Do you know what? Scrap that for a minute. I think I need to change my words for these because they're not quite right. I need to. Oh, I can't do it very easily. Forget that one as well. I'll tell you what, we'll do epitone huai. Now that'll be okay. And we can probably just start by doing something entirely different. Let's actually make it sense with this. Let's do polygon. So this is epi plus the accusative, and that means onto the house. Okay, so that's a accusative. That's a new. And then we've got epi plus the dative. All right, so getting the dative one right, I'll just make sure I get the right thing on that. So it'll be on, we kind of go for on the boat, maybe. Let's do that one. So the boat is ploy on, and we want it as a genitive. Sorry, ploy you. So epi plus the genitive is something like on the boat. These all have fairly similar ideas. And then epi, if we use the dative, this will be on or in. So let's do a so if we do toi oi koi, then epi plus the dative means on or in the house. And again, there's going to be some overlap in terms of the way that works. So in some ways, those subtleties might come out. I think for now, just to get an idea on the fact that these particular prepositions, these two prepositions, will come in three different cases. All right, so apologies for that. I obviously hadn't checked my words from my copy and paste. Right, that leaves us with another set of questions actually, which again you can have a look at. It might be better just to drop back to these if you want to, just for a few minutes, or maybe if you've got some questions to ask. But we'll leave it. We'll leave that there. So you've got a whole load of prepositions that have two cases. You've got two prepositions that come in three cases, and we just need to learn really what they mean, and then we'll be able to translate them appropriately when we see them when we're reading through our Greek New Testament when we get to it. Okay, any questions on those? I'll stop the recording, but you might want to spend. Now you've got a couple of minutes if you want to have a look at, say, the next question.